Hey there, movie lovers and thrill seekers. If you're someone who loves intense suspense, spine-tingling horror, and those shocking "did that just happen" moments, then you're in for a wild ride. Because in today's video, we're going to talk about one of the most unforgettable horror sequels ever made, Final Destination 2, released in 2003. That's right, the second chapter in the iconic Final Destination franchise that took the idea of fate and turned it into pure cinematic terror. If you're looking to watch this heart-pounding movie in English, then stick with us. We've got everything you need to know. But before we jump into the chaos and carnage of this film, let me remind you, if you enjoy content like this, go ahead and give this video a like. It really helps us keep making awesome movie breakdowns for you. And if you're new to our channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a single update. Trust me, if you love movies, especially horror, thrillers, and deep dives into the world of filmmaking, you're in the right place. Now, back to the movie. Final Destination 2 isn't just another horror sequel. It's a cleverly crafted, nerve-wracking continuation of a story that plays with the concept of death itself. The movie builds on the unique premise of the original, where death has a design and if you cheat it, it will come back for you. But it takes things to an even more intense level. With its unforgettable opening scene, yes, that highway pileup, this movie grabs your attention from the very beginning and never lets go. In today's video, we're going to break down everything about this film. What's the movie about? Who's in it? Where can you watch it? We'll answer all of that and more. I'll also tell you which OTT platforms or satellite channels are currently streaming this movie, so you can jump right into the action as soon as you're done watching this video. But we're not stopping at just where to watch. We're going deep into the technical details that make this movie so impactful. From the cinematography to the editing, the brilliant use of practical effects, the sound design that sends shivers down your spine, and the haunting musical score that lingers in your head long after the credits roll. We'll cover it all. You'll also hear about the pre-production process, how the movie was planned, where it was filmed, and how the post-production team brought the film's terrifying moments to life. We'll also talk numbers. How much was the budget for this film? How much did it earn at the box office? Was it a success, or did it struggle to meet expectations? You'll find out in just a bit. And, of course, we'll talk about the storyline. I'll give you a short, spoiler-free review of the plot to give you an idea of what to expect without ruining the suspense. We'll look at how the characters connect to the events of the first movie and how fate catches up with them in the most unexpected ways. You'll also get to know the star cast, who played which character, how their performances contributed to the film, and which roles stood out the most. We'll break down the main characters, their motivations, and how they try to outsmart death, often with shocking and gruesome results. Plus, I'll share a few fun and surprising facts from behind the scenes, like how certain death scenes were created, what real stunts were performed, and what ideas were scrapped during production. So, friends, if you're ready to take a deep dive into a movie that keeps you on the edge of your seat from start to finish, then make sure you stay with us till the end of this video. There's a lot of exciting, eerie, and jaw-dropping information coming your way. Whether you've already seen Final Destination 2 or you're just discovering it for the first time, this video is packed with details that'll make you appreciate the film even more. Grab your popcorn, sit back, and maybe keep the lights on, because once you enter the world of Final Destination, there's no escaping what comes next. Let's jump right in and uncover everything there is to know about Final Destination 2.
2.
Plot and narrative ***. Alright, horror fans, let's get into the twisted, nerve-wracking, adrenaline-pumping story of Final Destination 2, where the only thing more unpredictable than death is the way it gets you. This isn't just your typical slasher flick with a guy in a mask. No, here, death itself is the villain, and it plays by its own bizarre, invisible rules. So buckle up, literally. You'll never look at a seatbelt the same way again, because this story starts with one of the most iconic and terrifying openings in horror movie history. We begin with Kimberly Corman, your average early 2000s college student, planning a weekend road trip with her friends. Everything seems normal, sunny skies, radio playing, friends joking around, until suddenly bam, Kimberly experiences a horrifying vision. Not a dream, Not a hallucination, but a crystal-clear premonition of a catastrophic highway pileup involving exploding logs, flipping cars, screaming victims, and fire everywhere. It's chaos on wheels. And just when it feels too real to be fake, she snaps back. She's still on the highway just moments before the accident happens. What does she do? She blocks the on-ramp with her car, preventing a line of other drivers from entering the freeway, which of course delays their deaths. And then, just like clockwork, the pileup unfolds exactly as she saw it. Here's where it gets crazy. Everyone she saves was meant to die. That's where the rules of Final Destination kick in. According to the twisted logic of the universe, if you cheat death, death comes back for you. And it does not like being cheated. One by one, the survivors begin to die in shockingly elaborate and ironic ways. And no, it's not ghosts or killers chasing them. It's chain reactions of coincidences, Rube Goldberg-style setups where an open window, a loose cable, or a spilled liquid turns into a fatal trap. The creativity behind each death is as wild as it is terrifying. The tension doesn't come from jump scares. It comes from watching every little object on screen and thinking, wait, is that going to kill them? The plot doesn't follow a fancy, nonlinear structure. It's surprisingly straightforward, but that doesn't make it predictable. It's like playing chess with the Grim Reaper. Kimberly and the other survivors start piecing things together, especially with help from Clear Rivers, the only survivor from the first movie who's now living in a padded room because, hey, that's what trying to outsmart death will do to you. She helps explain how the pattern works and what they might need to do to break the cycle. But the twist? This time, the rules seem to be reversed. The survivors weren't supposed to be saved by Kimberly's vision. They were actually meant to die because of events triggered by the deaths in the first film. So now, not only are they marked for death, they're caught in a domino effect that goes all the way back to Flight 180. Mind blown, right? The emotional punch comes from how each character reacts to their impending doom. Some deny it, some panic, some try to outrun fate. The conflict isn't just external, it's psychological. The fear builds not just from what is going to happen, but when and how. You're constantly holding your breath, watching characters move through their environment like mice in a maze filled with invisible traps. A door slams. A fan turns on. A coffee mug tips over. And your brain is already screaming, this is it. This is how it ends. And sometimes, the movie fakes you out just to build the tension even more. One of the wildest turns in the story is when Kimberly has another vision, this time of a drowning baby. This leads her and the others on a frantic race to interpret what the vision means, how it fits into the sequence, and whether a new life could be the key to cheating death. And yes, this brings us to the classic Final Destination ending, an explosive finale full of panic, close calls, last-minute decisions, and one final, shocking death that leaves you staring at the screen like, did that seriously just happen? The story isn't just a horror movie checklist, it's a relentless puzzle box of fate and chaos. The theme is clear. No matter how much you plan, how cautious you are, or how fast you run, fate will find a way. It's both terrifying and strangely philosophical. Final Destination 2 doesn't play with timelines or fancy editing tricks. It plays with you. It makes you guess, it makes you jump, and it makes you look at the most ordinary things, elevators, airbags, dentist chairs, with absolute terror. The story doesn't unfold in a loop or flashbacks. It just keeps hurtling forward like a runaway truck, and we're all strapped in for the ride. 3. Character development, ****. Let's talk characters, because in Final Destination 2, we don't just have a lineup of random horror movie fodder. We have a full-on mix of personalities, each bringing their own fears, quirks, and reactions to the insane situation they're thrown into. This movie isn't about heroes in capes or villains with monologues. It's about regular people realizing that something way bigger and way scarier than any masked killer is after them. And what makes it so much fun and stressful to watch is how each of them handles that horrifying truth in their own way. Let's start with our central character, Kimberly Corman. She's not your usual scream queen. She's smart, cautious, and when she sees that terrifying vision at the beginning, she actually does something about it. She stops traffic. She saves lives. But what makes her more interesting is what comes after. Kimberly is hit with the terrifying responsibility of knowing she interfered with fate, and as people around her start dropping like flies, she becomes obsessed with figuring out how to stop it. You can literally see her evolving, from confused and scared to determined and brave. She's not fearless, she's not perfect, but she's trying, and that's what makes her relatable. She's not fighting a monster, she's trying to solve a cosmic riddle with lives on the line. Then there's Clear Rivers, returning from the first movie, and wow, has she changed. She's the only survivor from the first film who really understands what's happening, and she's done the only logical thing a person might do when being hunted by invisible death. She checks herself into a padded cell surrounded by nothing sharp, flammable, or dangerous. She's become paranoid, emotionally scarred, but still strong. When Kimberly seeks her out, Clear has a choice: stay safe and isolated, or step back into the chaos to help others. And she chooses the latter. That moment of stepping out of her self-imposed prison shows her growth. She's still scared, but now she's choosing to face it head-on. The rest of the cast? Oh, it's a colorful crew. There's Thomas Burke, the cop who was saved in the initial accident and now finds himself reluctantly dragged into Kimberly's theory. He starts off as the rational guy, the skeptic. But slowly, as the evidence stacks up and the deaths start getting weirder, you can see the moment he shifts. He becomes Kimberly's partner in figuring things out, his skepticism giving way to concern, and eventually, full-blown belief. His journey is subtle, but his growing protectiveness and leadership show how much he's changed by the end. Then we've got the group of other saved survivors, each one representing a different personality under pressure. There's Nora, the overly protective mother clinging to her son, Tim, who just wants to live his life like a normal teenager. Their dynamic adds emotional weight, especially when fate comes knocking. Then we have Eugene, the no-nonsense, sarcastic guy who doesn't buy into all the doom talk until things get very real, very fast. And Rory, the comic relief with layers. He seems like a joke at first, but as the group's situation worsens, he starts to reveal depth, bravery, and even sacrifice. He becomes one of the emotional anchors of the film in a way you don't see coming. Kat, the career-driven woman with a phone permanently glued to her ear, represents denial and distraction. Her arc is less about growth and more about realism. She never fully believes in what's happening until it's too late. And then there's Isabella, the pregnant woman whose unborn child might be the key to cheating death. She's a wild card, at first seeming unrelated, but her inclusion forces the group to question the rules and rethink the pattern. What makes all these characters so engaging isn't just how they react to death, but how they react to each other. This movie does a great job of building tension not just from the deaths, but from the group dynamics. People argue, panic, blame each other. Trust becomes a currency. And as the body count rises, you can feel the emotional toll it takes on the survivors. It's not just about fear. It's about guilt, confusion, desperation. Some want to save others.
Some just want to save themselves.
And in that chaos, we get glimpses of who these people really are. The beauty of Final Destination 2 is that it doesn't give us traditional arcs with neat little bows. It throws characters into a nightmare and asks, what kind of person are you really, when fate itself is hunting you down? Some step up. Some fall apart. And some, well, they never see it coming. That's what makes the character development here so entertaining. It's unpredictable, it's human, and it's dripping with tension. 4. Performances ***. Let's talk performances, because in Final Destination 2, the cast isn't just running from explosions or dodging shattering glass. They're selling fear, desperation, confusion, and those priceless, I just realized I'm going to die, expressions that make this franchise so memorable. The actors might not be A-list Hollywood royalty, but they absolutely understand the assignment. Make us believe that an invisible force of death is stalking you, and make it look terrifying. First up, A.J. Cook as Kimberly Corman. She carries the film on her shoulders, and she does it with a mix of vulnerability and raw intensity that keeps you invested. A.J. doesn't just scream and panic. She thinks, she fights, and she obsesses. You can practically see the wheels turning in her head every time a new clue drops. Her performance sells the transformation from confused bystander to someone who's desperately trying to outsmart the supernatural. There's a scene where she realizes the deaths are happening in reverse order, and the look on her face is a full emotional cocktail of fear, urgency, and determination. She's not just reacting to the horror, she's actively wrestling with it, and that makes her a compelling lead. Then there's Larter returning as Clear Rivers, and wow, does she bring some weight with her. Clear is no longer just the traumatized girl from the first film. She's hardened, guarded, and carrying a heavy emotional load. Ollie plays her like someone who's been living with paranoia and survivor's guilt for too long. There's a deep sadness in her performance that makes her scenes hit harder. She's not just helping Kimberly and the others because she wants to, she needs to. It's like redemption, mixed with resignation. You get the sense she knows how this is going to end, but she does it anyway, and that silent courage makes her performance one of the film's emotional anchors. Michael Landis as Officer Thomas Burke is the skeptical cop-turned-believer, and he plays it with just the right balance of grounded realism and rising dread. He doesn't go full panic mode. He stays calm and measured, which actually makes him the most relatable character for a while. Watching him slowly shift from disbelief to full cooperation adds credibility to the escalating madness. He gives the audience someone to hold on to when everything else starts spinning out of control. There's a moment where he shields Kimberly during one of the close calls, and it's not just action, it's quiet character development told through instinct. Now let's talk about the supporting cast, because this film is full of personalities. Keegan-Connor Tracy as Kat is hilariously uptight, impatient, and absolutely in denial about everything going on. She delivers her lines with such dry sarcasm that it's hard not to laugh, even when everything's falling apart. Her death scene, like many in the film, has that delicious irony, and she plays it with just enough stubbornness to make it tragic and darkly funny at the same time. Jonathan Cherry as Rory brings the comic relief, but he's not just the goofy guy. His energy is chaotic, yes, but when things start getting real, he shifts into a more serious tone surprisingly well. There's a moment where he steps up, takes responsibility, and it's oddly heroic. He adds levity when the film needs a breather, but when it counts, his performance lands. Terrence T.C. Carson as Eugene is the tough, skeptical guy who just wants to be left alone, and he brings that edge from the very beginning. He's the kind of character who seems like he's going to crack jokes until the end, but then he gets hit with the reality of what's going on, and TC sells the shift with quiet intensity. There's a hospital scene involving him that ramps up the tension, and his reaction is pure panic mixed with disbelief. It's grounded and terrifying because it feels so real. And of course, there's Linda Boyd as Nora, the overprotective mom, and James Kirk as her teenage son, Tim. Their mother-son dynamic is short-lived but impactful. Linda brings a frantic energy to Nora that feels authentic, like she's clinging to some illusion of safety that's about to be ripped away. And James Kirk as Tim plays the eye-rolling teen with just enough charm to make you root for him, even when he's being a little too confident at the dentist's office. Their performances make their fates hit a bit harder. Everyone in the cast, no matter how big or small their role, adds to the atmosphere of panic and inevitability. These aren't over-the-top performances or melodramatic screams. They're mostly grounded, believable reactions to a completely unbelievable situation. And that's what makes it work. The actors don't play their roles like horror movie stereotypes. They play them like people who've just been told there's no monster to run from, just a ticking clock and no idea where the next strike is coming from. The performances in Final Destination 2 elevate the film beyond the usual body count horror. You believe these people. You feel for them. And when they go, you're not just jumping, you're reacting because the actors made them feel real. And in a movie where death is invisible, it's the cast that brings the fear to life.
5.
Direction ****. Alright, horror junkies, let's talk about who's behind the wheel of this nightmare ride. David R. Ellis, the man responsible for turning Final Destination 2 into one of the slickest, sharpest, and most memorably twisted horror sequels out there. This guy doesn't just direct a movie. He orchestrates a symphony of suspense, chaos, and pure paranoia. His vision is clear from the moment those deadly logs start rolling down the highway, and from there, it's a high-speed sprint to keep your nerves shredded. Now, Ellis had a background as a stunt coordinator and second-unit director, and wow, does it show. The action sequences in this film don't just happen, they explode. That highway pileup at the beginning? That's not just an opening scene, it's a full-blown trauma machine. It's shot like an apocalyptic ballet of destruction. He takes what could have been a quick scare and stretches it into a crescendo of tension, giving each moment just enough time to breathe before slamming you with the next one. He knows how to build tension not through jump scares, but through anticipation. Every frame of that scene screams, "Watch closely, something bad's about to happen." Ellis is a master at taking the ordinary and making it terrifying. A kitchen, a dentist's office, a hotel room. Under his direction, these aren't safe spaces, they're traps waiting to be sprung. He doesn't need monsters in the shadows. All he needs is a puddle of water, a slippery tile, a nail gun sitting a little too close to someone's face, and suddenly, you're sweating. He uses the camera to tease your brain. You know something's coming, you just don't know when or how. That's where his genius lies. He turns every scene into a game of "Where's the danger?" and makes you play along, squinting at background details like a detective trying to solve a murder before it happens. And the pacing? He's got it locked in. The movie never drags. It's always propelling forward, always pressing the gas pedal, but never to the point of exhaustion. He gives you just enough time to catch your breath between set pieces, and then he throws you back into the fire. There's a rhythm to the film that keeps you hooked. It's not just death, death, death in a straight line. Ellis knows how to pepper in moments of character reflection, new information, even humor, just enough to reset your senses before the next heart-stopping twist. Let's talk tone, because this movie walks a tightrope between straight horror and dark comedy, and Ellis balances it perfectly. He doesn't treat the absurdity of death's elaborate plans like a joke, but he also doesn't make it melodramatic. It's this perfectly calibrated middle ground where you're laughing nervously one minute and holding your breath the next. That dentist office scene? You're giggling at the kid's fear of a fish tank 1 second, and then panicking when that mobile drops from the ceiling. Ellis plays with your emotions like a horror puppeteer. He knows exactly how far to push without losing the suspense. Shot composition in this film is all about suggestion and suspense. Ellis loves giving you that wide shot where everything looks calm, but something feels off. He frames scenes so that you can see the danger before the characters do, making you yell at the screen like, "No, don't go near the microwave." It's like visual chess. He places every object, every angle with purpose. And when the inevitable happens, it feels earned. Not random or cheap, but like a terrible inevitability you watched unfold piece by piece. And don't even get started on how he handles the deaths themselves. These aren't quick scares. These are full-on cinematic events. Each one is a meticulously crafted Rube Goldberg machine of doom. There's suspense in the build-up, shock in the execution, and often a nasty twist of irony at the end. Ellis directs these like mini-movies within the movie. You can tell he's having fun, but in a way that respects the audience's intelligence. He knows you're trying to figure it out, and he's always one step ahead, flipping the script at the last second. Ellis also brings continuity from the first film while expanding the universe. He doesn't reboot or rehash, he builds. He uses clear rivers not just as fan service, but as emotional glue, anchoring this film to the trauma of the original. The lore of Death's design is explored further, and the rules get twistier, but never so much that it feels like nonsense. It's all still rooted in a tight, clear vision. David R. Ellis doesn't just direct Final Destination 2, he engineers it. Like a wicked conductor with a blood-stained baton, he controls the pace, the tone, the suspense, and the spectacle, keeping you right on the edge of your seat. He turns everyday life into a minefield and makes you look twice at ceiling fans, elevators, and errant coffee cups for weeks afterward. This isn't just a horror sequel, it's a cinematic pressure cooker, and Ellis is the one turning up the heat. 6. Cinematography, ***. Let's get into the visual madness of Final Destination 2, because this isn't just a movie that wants to scare you, it wants to mess with your eyes while it's doing it. The cinematography here, handled by Gary Capo, is like a silent partner in crime. It's subtle when it needs to sneak up on you, and loud when it wants to slap you with terror. Every frame is designed like a visual trap, and trust me, your eyes will be scanning the background like you're searching for hidden clues in a horror-themed escape room. First, let's talk about the way the camera moves. This film doesn't just sit back and let the chaos play out. It glides, it zooms, it creeps. During the infamous highway pileup in the opening sequence, the camera choreography is wild. It weaves through the vehicles, follows every spinning tire and flying windshield like it's dancing with destruction. That scene isn't just a car crash, it's a full-on visual assault. The camera puts you in the accident, not just watching it. You feel like you're one wrong head turn away from a log smashing through your windshield, and that's because of how Capo positions the audience, right in the line of fire. Lighting also plays a huge part in selling the tension. This isn't a movie bathed in horror shadows and gothic gloom. Nope, Final Destination too often plays in bright, everyday settings, and that's what makes it extra creepy. The lighting feels normal. It tricks you into thinking you're safe. A dentist's office glowing with sterile white lights. A cozy living room basked in soft daylight. But the tension is hiding within that light. There's no comfort zone here. By not relying on darkness, the cinematography makes death feel like it's lurking in the open, hiding in plain sight. That's psychological horror gold. Now, let's appreciate the framing. One of the film's sneakiest tricks is how it uses composition to keep your attention bouncing around the screen. You're always watching for the next threat. Is that glass of water too close to the edge? Why is that ladder position like that? Wait, is that cord fraying? Capo knows how to fill the frame with seemingly innocent details that gradually build dread. The real magic is that you're trained by the film to look for trouble in every scene. The cinematography becomes part of the game. It's not just showing you what's happening, it's daring you to predict it. And then, those sudden, striking visuals. When things go wrong, they go wrong spectacularly, and the camera doesn't shy away. Explosions, impalements, shattering glass. Each one is captured with just enough slow motion, just enough zoom, to make you squirm. These aren't just death scenes, they're visual set pieces. The film often holds the shot just a little longer than comfortable, forcing you to stare at the wreckage, the aftermath, the irony of it all. There's an art to that kind of brutality, and this cinematography doesn't waste a drop of it. Angles? Oh, let's talk about those. Capo loves the low-angle creeping shots that make you feel like something is stalking from beneath. He also uses over-the-shoulder setups and point-of-view angles to bring you into the characters' perspectives. One moment, you're watching a character nervously make a cup of tea. The next, you're seeing the steam cloud the screen while a ceiling fan wobbles above. The angles tease you, make you uncomfortable. They whisper, something's off, and leave you scanning corners like a maniac. And when death comes, the cinematography explodes with energy. A falling pane of glass isn't just a falling pane of glass, it's an event. The shot captures the anticipation, the motion, the silence before impact. It's not horror by jump scare, it's horror by inevitability. And Capo's lens never lets you look away. You're there, wide-eyed, watching it all unfold like a front-row seat to fate. Even transitions between scenes carry a kind of visual rhythm. 1 second, you're watching peaceful trees sway in the wind, and the next, bam, you're inside a chaotic hospital room. The edits are timed with precision, always keeping the audience one step behind the danger.
It's a trick that keeps you off balance.
You don't relax. You can't relax. What's wild is that there's actual beauty in some of these shots. As twisted as it sounds, the chaos is often shot with such clean lines and vivid contrast that it's almost elegant. That log truck death ballet? Visually stunning. A morbid kind of poetry that makes you go, wow, and nope, at the same time. So, yeah, the cinematography in Final Destination 2 isn't just background noise, it's a character. A sneaky, brilliant, nerve-shredding character that hides clues, plays with light, manipulates your eyes, and never lets you forget that in this universe, death is always watching, and the camera is its best accomplice.
7.
Editing and pacing ****. Now buckle up, Because when we dive into the editing and pacing of Final Destination 2, it's like examining the engine of a high-speed roller coaster that's been tuned for maximum whiplash. This film doesn't coast. It rips through its runtime with the kind of rhythm that keeps your pulse playing catch-up. Every cut, every transition, every sequence is carefully timed like it's being scored by a ticking clock. The editing here is not just about moving the story along. It's about building dread, feeding anxiety, and occasionally yanking the rug out from under you. Right out of the gate, the movie throws you into chaos. The editing in that legendary highway pileup is a masterclass in controlled destruction. It's not just fast cuts for the sake of adrenaline. There's a deliberate flow to how each vehicle crashes, how each moment escalates into the next. The editor, Eric Sears, knows exactly when to hold a shot so you can feel the tension and when to snap you into the next jolt of terror. That sequence alone is like a mini-movie that tells you everything about how this film's pacing is going to work. Quick, punchy, and always one breath ahead of your panic response. What's clever is how the film balances its pacing between these explosive death sequences and the quieter, investigative moments. It doesn't just plow through its runtime like a non-stop montage of accidents. Instead, it gives you time to breathe, process, and, crucially, worry star. After a character dies in some horrific Rube Goldberg fashion, the movie slows down. You get these quieter beats where the survivors start connecting the dots, sharing visions, flipping through newspapers, talking about fate. But even in these scenes, the editing keeps things tight. Dialogue is snappy, reaction shots are quick, and there's always a sense of forward momentum. You're not being lulled. You're being teased into the next catastrophe. The transitions between scenes are fluid and intentional. There's a rhythmic precision that makes the whole movie feel like it's marching to the beat of doom. Often, one scene will end with a visual or sound cue that bleeds perfectly into the next. A scream, a crash, a flickering light. These are used like musical cues to guide you through the chaos without jarring you. And let's talk about tension building. The editors have an evil kind of genius when it comes to milking a moment. You know someone's about to die, but the scene drags in the best way. They let the audience stew in their own dread, watching the toaster spark, the microwave tick, the window creak open, and then bam, you get hit when you least expect it. Timing is everything in this kind of horror, and the editing nails it again and again. There's also a satisfying rhythm to how each character's arc is paced. No one gets lost in the shuffle. The deaths are spaced out in a way that keeps you constantly on edge, but never overwhelmed. Just when you think you're safe, when you've had enough time to relax or think you've cracked the pattern, another character bites it, and you're thrown back into high gear. It's like the film is breathing, inhaling calm and exhaling terror. And each breath is cut, spliced, and timed to keep your nerves jangling. Another cool editing trick is how the film occasionally uses quick flashes of foreshadowing, those eerie little visions Kimberly sees, or flashes of past events. They're quick, almost subliminal, but they're stitched into the narrative with precision. It's just enough to disorient you, or hint that something big is coming. And when you finally realize what those images meant, it hits you like a truckload of logs. The editing also makes sure that the deaths are not just random shocks, they're set pieces, edited like mini suspense thrillers. You get false alarms, fake-outs, moments where you think, oh, it's going to be the elevator. And then surprise, it's the airbag that pushes the pipe through someone's skull. The editors are playing with audience expectations like horror DJs, remixing the beats of fear, relief, and pure disbelief. And let's not forget the finale. The pacing in the third act kicks into overdrive, but never feels rushed. It's like a controlled skid, fast and frantic, but still gripping the road. The editing here ties all the narrative threads together at breakneck speed, but you're never confused. It's chaos with a purpose, dread with direction. The way it ratchets up stakes and crosscuts between characters makes it feel like a countdown, like a bomb is ticking and everyone's trying to figure out which wire to cut. So, yeah, Final Destination 2 doesn't just have tight editing, it has strategic editing. The kind that understands horror isn't just about what happens. It's about when it happens, how long it takes, and how much your nerves can take before they snap. The pacing is relentless but smart. The transitions are seamless. and the rhythm keeps your heart pounding even when the screen is deceptively calm. This is horror that never lets go, because the editing never stops pulling you forward.
8.
Soundtrack and score ***. Let's crank up the volume and dive into the soundscape of Final Destination 2, because the music here doesn't just fill the background. It slithers into your spine, creeps into your ears, and whispers, "You're not safe." The score, composed by Shirley Walker, is like the film's invisible hand, always nudging your emotions, tightening your nerves, and then releasing the tension with the precision of a horror maestro who knows exactly when to let the silence scream louder than any note ever could. Walker's music is like an unspoken narrator in this film. It doesn't draw attention to itself with grand melodies or sweeping orchestral fanfare. No, this score operates like a predator in the dark, quiet, calculating, always present but rarely obvious. When a death scene begins to build, the music slinks in like a fog. It starts low, maybe a few string pulses, a distant hum, a little atonal shimmer. You don't even realize your body is tensing up until your shoulders are touching your ears. That's not just clever music, that's psychological warfare, and Walker is the general. What's genius about the score is how it mirrors the concept of inevitability. There's often a droning undercurrent, like a ticking clock that isn't keeping time, it's counting down. It creates this mood of suspense that never really resolves. Even in quieter scenes, the music doesn't fully let go. It lingers like a shadow, reminding you that death is still around the corner. It's the horror equivalent of a shark fin circling the water while everything above seems calm. And let's talk about those moments of silence, because this movie uses them like a weapon. Just when you think the music is going to swell into a crescendo to warn you of the incoming terror, bam, it cuts out. Total silence. And your brain fills that gap with dread. It's the kind of silence that makes your heartbeat the loudest thing in the room. There's one scene involving an elevator, you know the one, where the music just vanishes for a beat. No eerie violins, no thunderous drums. Just the hum of fluorescent lights and the sound of someone's nervous breath. That kind of audio restraint is pure horror gold. It makes you feel like you're holding your breath right along with the character. The score also uses recurring motifs to tie the story together. There are subtle musical phrases that echo throughout the film, little hints and echoes from the first movie that creep into the background of this one, like musical fingerprints left by fate itself. It's a haunting way of reminding the audience that everything is connected, that this isn't just a random sequel, it's part of a larger, death-soaked universe. These motifs don't jump out at you. They lurk. They circle. And when they return at the right moment, they hit you with a weird mix of nostalgia and doom. Now, let's not forget the use of licensed music and ambient sound. This isn't a film that leans heavily on pop tracks, but when songs do appear, they're chosen with dark irony or sharp contrast. You'll hear something upbeat or ordinary in the background, a radio playing, a jukebox humming, and suddenly, someone is being violently ejected from the universe. The contrast is jarring in the best way, like laughter at a funeral. It's unsettling, but it works because Final Destination 2 knows that horror lives in the uncomfortable clash between what feels normal and what's lurking just beyond it. Even the way sound effects are woven with the score is worth celebrating. You might hear a train rumble, a clock tick, a distant siren, each one subtly scored with tension underneath. It's not just about music playing during scenes. It's about the entire sound design being orchestrated to make your skin crawl. The screech of tires blends into a violin sting. The whoosh of a falling object turns into a haunting bass note. It's seamless. It's surgical. And it keeps the experience immersive and unpredictable. The music doesn't just accompany the film, it enhances it, deepens it, twists it. It's the hidden hand that guides your emotions and the unseen presence that makes every second feel like it could be your last. Shirley Walker crafts a sonic experience that respects the intelligence of the audience. She doesn't scream at you with jumpy violins. She lurks, she builds, she suggests. Her score is like fate itself, silent, omnipresent, inescapable. In Final Destination 2, the music isn't just an accessory. It's a character. It whispers prophecies. It tightens nooses. It dances with death. And most importantly, it never lets you forget that in this world, you're not in control. The sound is
9.
themes and messages, asterisk, asterisk. All right, friends, now it's time to get a little philosophical. Yes, we're still talking about Final Destination 2, the movie where people get flattened, impaled, exploded, and turned into cautionary tales for every household appliance. Beneath all the flying shrapnel and dramatic slow-mo deaths, there's actually a darkly fascinating set of themes that turns this horror roller coaster into something more than just a parade of creative fatalities. Buckle in, because death is not just a killer here. It's the most patient, persistent philosopher you'll ever meet. At the heart of Final Destination 2 is the idea of fate versus free will. It's the movie's central obsession. Do we have control over our destinies, or is everything preordained? The characters in this film are not just running from a killer, they're fighting against the invisible gears of destiny itself. Every move they make, every attempt to cheat death, is a desperate plea for freedom. But death, being the meticulous entity it is, has a plan, a sequence, a list. It doesn't rage or chase, it just corrects. It's like the universe has its own spell check, and these characters are all typos. No matter how hard they try, the red line always finds them. There's also a heavy dose of cause and effect logic at play. This isn't random chaos, it's dominoes falling. The film practically worships the butterfly effect. A spilled coffee, a delayed phone call, a crow flapping its wings at the wrong time. These tiny incidents spiral into catastrophic ends. The message? Every single choice matters. Every little moment could be the spark that ignites disaster. It turns everyday life into a minefield. That's part of the fun and fear, realizing that the universe is like a clockwork monster, and you're just a gear trying not to jam. And then there's guilt and redemption. Several characters in the movie carry emotional baggage from past mistakes. Some feel responsible for deaths they couldn't prevent, others for lives they couldn't save. The movie doesn't hit you over the head with it, but it's there, simmering beneath the surface. This isn't just about cheating death, it's about making peace with it. Some characters try to atone, to find meaning in their survival or the deaths of others. It adds a surprisingly thoughtful layer to a movie best known for a flying barbed wire fence. Redemption isn't just about living, it's about deserving to live. Let's not forget the theme of interconnectedness. The sequel goes all in on the idea that everyone's stories are tangled together. People who've never met before are suddenly thrust into a shared fate, and their individual decisions start shaping one another's lives and deaths. It's like a deadly web, and death is the spider watching from the corner. The movie constantly reminds you that no one's an island. Your actions, whether you mean to or not, ripple outwards and affect others in ways you'll never predict. It's a chilling thought. You might escape today, but your escape might be someone else's doom tomorrow. Another quiet theme is the illusion of safety. The film thrives on taking places we think of as safe, highways, elevators, kitchens, and turning them into death traps. It plays with our sense of security, showing us that even the most routine moments can become fatal. It's not just a gimmick, it's a statement. Safety is a myth. Comfort is an illusion. And no matter how careful you are, the world has other plans. It's like the movie saying, sure, buckle your seatbelt, but did you check if the logging truck in front of you is strapped down? And finally, Final Destination 2 taps into something deeply primal, our fear of the inevitable. This movie isn't about escaping a villain or defeating a monster. There's no final showdown with a slasher. There's no weapon, no spell, no lucky break that gets you out alive for sure. That's what makes it so unnerving. You're not fighting something. You're fighting everything.
Time.
Circumstance. Destiny. It's the existential horror that really hits you when the credits roll. If death has a design, and it's already been printed, then what's the point of anything? And yet the characters still try. They still hope. They still resist. And maybe that's the most human message of all. So yeah, you can enjoy Final Destination 2 for the insane deaths and explosive chaos, but underneath it all is a surprisingly rich exploration of fate, consequence, guilt, connection, and our fragile belief that we're the ones steering the wheel. Spoiler alert, we're not. Death is driving, and we're just passengers trying to read the map before the next sharp turn. 10. Visual effects and CGI ***. Let's talk about the explosive, bone-crunching, glass-shattering visual buffet that is Final Destination 2. This movie isn't just about suspense and fate. It's a full-blown FX showcase with a mission to make you side-eye every appliance in your house. It's got the wild spirit of a practical effects-obsessed horror film mixed with just enough CGI to sprinkle some digital magic, or mayhem, into the mix. And friends, whether it's a car wreck or a barbed wire fatality, this movie wants to make sure you feel every second of it. Now, let's start with the big one, the highway pileup scene. This sequence is legendary for a reason, and a huge chunk of its impact comes from how insanely real it looks. That's because a lot of it is. The production went old school, smashing up actual vehicles, flipping cars, and rolling logs like they were trying to win an award for most creative use of a lumber truck. You can feel the weight of every impact, the crunch of metal, the chaos spiraling out of control. When the visual effects team combines practical stunts with well-placed digital enhancements, like fiery explosions or background destruction, it creates a disaster that feels horrifyingly plausible. It's not just eye candy. It's eye destruction. And it pulls you right into the scene. One of the most effective things the movie does is blending practical gore with subtle CGI. The deaths, brutal, detailed, and often gross in the best possible horror way, lean heavily on makeup, prosthetics, and clever practical setups. But where CGI does step in, it's often used to polish or amplify, not to replace. You'll see it in things like glass shards flying at just the right deadly angle, or the moment before a character's fate is sealed by a chain reaction of unlikely but inevitable events. It's that fine line between enhancement and overkill, and Final Destination 2 walks it with shocking confidence. And speaking of chain reactions, this movie loves a good Rube Goldberg-style death trap. A fan tips over, knocks a coffee onto a keyboard, shorts a circuit, sparks a fire, blows up a microwave, and next thing you know, someone's airborne. The genius is in how the visual effects never draw too much attention to themselves. They're not flashy for the sake of being flashy. They're part of the puzzle. You're not looking at CGI, you're looking at consequences. And the smoother the effects are, the more you buy into the deadly domino game playing out on screen. But of course, it's not all perfection. There are a few moments where the CGI shows its early 2000s age. Some explosions or quick digital cuts can look a little glossy or floaty, especially by today's standards. There are split-second visuals where you can tell the budget had to stretch to accommodate the film's death-hungry imagination. But here's the thing, those moments don't break immersion. In fact, they kind of add to the movie's charm. This film is a love letter to over-the-top doom, and when the effects go big, even when they feel a little cartoonish, they still feel like they belong in this chaotic universe. What also helps is the movie's commitment to staging everything with impact. Whether a character is sliced, squashed, burned, or impaled, it's never done lazily. The visual effects are tied tightly to the physical performances and sound design, creating these gruesome little masterpieces that stick with you long after the credits roll. You remember the deaths not just because they're shocking, but because they're crafted. Each one is a mini-movie, complete with build-up, payoff, and a visual mic drop. And let's not overlook the environmental details. The movie uses CGI to build tension in the background, weather patterns, flickering lights, unstable objects just waiting to fall. It's not always in-your-face FX work, but it's always there, gently setting the stage for chaos. You start scanning every scene like it's a puzzle. What's going to kill someone here? That broken fan? The wobbly ladder? The bubbling pot on the stove? It's an interactive visual experience, and the effects play a huge part in keeping you engaged. So whether it's flying shrapnel, slow-motion glass explosions, or a surprise airbag that launches a character into the next life, Final Destination 2 uses its visual effects like a magician uses sleight of hand, smart, swift, and always in service of the trick. It knows what scares you. It knows what fascinates you. And it delivers it all with the gritty spectacle of a horror show that refuses to pull any punches, digital or otherwise. 11. Set design and locations, asterisk, asterisk. Let's step out of the flaming car wreck for a moment and take a good, hard look at the world of Final Destination 2. Because while the spotlight usually goes to the highway carnage and Rube Goldberg death machines, the real unsung hero here is the setting. The everyday spaces where terror quietly brews behind an innocent microwave or a slick hospital floor. This movie turns ordinary locations into ticking time bombs, and that's where the set design pulls its clever little tricks. It's not about building a fantasy world, it's about making your world feel terrifyingly unsafe. The genius of the production design lies in its subtle realism. The movie doesn't create haunted castles or sci-fi landscapes. Instead, it drags death into the places you see every day, your kitchen, your bathroom, your office cubicle. And it's precisely that familiarity that makes the danger feel so much more real. You're not just watching someone slip in a hospital room, you're suddenly remembering that your own shower mat doesn't have enough grip. When a character walks into a dentist's office, the fluorescent lights and bland wall art make it feel like every generic clinic you've ever been to, until the birds start tapping at the window and all hell breaks loose. Take the highway scene, for instance. It's not just a road, it's every road. Generic enough to be anywhere, detailed enough to feel absolutely real. The concrete divider, the shoulder, the logging truck with its menacingly unstable cargo, it all feels ripped from a regular morning commute. The set design doesn't shout for attention, it whispers, "This could happen to you." That's the unsettling part. It's how the movie turns mundane realism into a death trap in disguise. Then there's the use of urban, small-town Americana. Gas stations, back alleys, newsrooms, apartments. These aren't high-concept movie sets. They're textured, cluttered, lived-in spaces that reflect the characters' lives. And yet each one is staged with such care that you start scanning every corner for potential hazards. That ceiling fan above the bed? Suspicious. That kitchen knife rack? Probably going to be airborne in the next 5 minutes. The props are placed not just to decorate, but to threaten. A ladder isn't just a ladder. A garbage disposal isn't just a disposal. Everything is loaded, visually and emotionally. Hospitals, in particular, get a special horror glow up here. Normally a place of healing, Final Destination 2 turns sterile white hallways into anxiety corridors. Medical instruments become menacing. Oxygen tanks hiss with quiet menace. Even a waiting room feels like it's pulsing with silent dread. And don't even get me started on the elevator scene. Claustrophobic, mechanical, and unforgiving, it's like a little metal purgatory just waiting to become a trap. The production team didn't just build sets. They weaponized them. The film also makes strong use of weather and natural surroundings to reinforce its uneasy vibe. The woods, for example, aren't serene, they're ominous. Misty, shadowy, with just enough ambiguity to make you nervous about what might be lurking behind that tree or lurking under that fallen branch. These are locations you admire, they're spaces you scan for danger. And that, friends, is the ultimate success of the design. It puts you on edge before anything even happens. Another brilliant trick the set designers use is layering in foreshadowing. Pay attention and you'll see that props often appear before they become deadly. The gym scene? That equipment is practically screaming, "Watch me," long before disaster strikes. The apartment setups are loaded with clues, candles, fans, fire escapes, teetering objects that get your imagination running even before the plot does. It turns the movie into an interactive experience where you're mentally solving puzzles just by looking at a room. So while Final Destination 2 may not feature grandiose castles or intergalactic spacecraft, its settings are masterpieces of practical horror. They feel like places we've all been, but slightly turned, warped just enough to make them unsettling. The props are not just background, they're co-conspirators in Death's plan. Every toaster, ladder, treadmill, and pane of glass feels like it's sitting there with a sinister smirk. The result is a world that's not only believable but hauntingly relatable, one where you're left wondering if that leaky pipe in your own bathroom is just one step away from cinematic doom.
12.
Dialogue and script, asterisk, asterisk. Let's talk about the heartbeat of Final Destination 2, the dialogue and script. Now, you're not walking into Shakespeare here, but let's be honest, nobody watches this movie expecting sonnets. What you get instead is something arguably more entertaining, a script that knows exactly what kind of roller coaster it's strapping you into. The writing in this film is like a disaster warning siren wrapped in popcorn movie cheese. It's loud, dramatic, self-aware, and just clever enough to keep you hanging on every line because you know something ridiculous and probably fatal is about to follow. First off, let's give some love to the script's unapologetic embrace of panic. The dialogue doesn't tiptoe, it sprints. As soon as the premonition hits and the chain of deaths begins, the characters start talking like their lives depend on it, which, spoiler alert, they absolutely do. The script turns up the urgency fast, with characters blurting out wild theories about death's design, visions, and fate as if they've just binge-watched a horror conspiracy docuseries. And while some of those lines might seem over the top, that's exactly what gives the film its charm. The drama isn't just in what's happening, it's in how they explain it. And can we talk about the monologues for a second? Oh yes, Final Destination 2 gives us horror monologues with full apocalyptic flair. When a character starts unraveling the logic behind Death's plan, it's like they're giving a TED Talk on cosmic karma, only with way more screaming and windshield trauma. Lines like, "We cheated death, and now death's coming back for us," get repeated like ominous nursery rhymes, and each time they hit, you start glancing around nervously at your furniture. The repetition of that phrase doesn't just drive the plot, it becomes a theme song for doom. There's also a beautiful layer of dark humor that sneaks through the script like a wink from the writers. The characters often say things that feel like horror movie inside jokes, like they're halfway aware they're living in a twisted game of Final Jeopardy hosted by the Grim Reaper. One character cracks a line about watching out for flying furniture, and then lo and behold, someone meets their end courtesy of, you guessed it, killer furniture. The script teases its audience, inviting you to laugh nervously before it turns the screws with the next gruesome turn. And yes, some of the dialogue is undeniably campy, but that's the secret sauce. Lines that might sound ridiculous in a drama play perfectly in this high-stakes thriller because they lean into the madness. The tone lets characters yell things like, "The signs are everywhere," or "You're next," without making you roll your eyes too hard. It keeps the energy high and the logic just loose enough for the fun to keep flowing. You're not here for realism. You're here for chaos wrapped in fast-paced banter. There's also something kind of endearing about how emotionally transparent the characters are. When they're scared, they say they're scared. When they're confused, they shout out their confusion. There are no cryptic cool guys here. Everyone's in full freak-out mode, and the script rides that wave without restraint. It makes the characters feel a little more real in a twisted way, like these could be your friends reacting to an unbelievable horror scenario with absolute, unfiltered panic. And let's not ignore the way the script uses dialogue to push the rules of the Final Destination universe forward. Every movie in the franchise adds some weird wrinkle to Death's rules, and in this one, the characters piece it together like amateur detectives. There's a whole sequence about how new life might interrupt Death's plan, and you know what? The script sells it with just enough passion to make it almost believable. It's goofy, yes, but it keeps the mythology engaging and moves the plot in unexpected directions. So whether it's a frantic scream, a half-baked theory delivered like gospel, or a sarcastic one-liner flung in the face of mortal danger, the dialogue in Final Destination 2 is doing a lot more than filling silence. It's flavoring the film with a mix of urgency, absurdity, and suspense that keeps your ears just as engaged as your eyes. This isn't high literature, it's high-octane survival speak, and it works like a charm. 13. Genre execution asterisk asterisk. Let's dive into the twisted funhouse mirror that is Final Destination 2 and see how it plays with the horror genre like a cat toying with a very doomed mouse. This movie doesn't just follow genre conventions. It throws them in a blender with a bag of nails and hits puree. From the very first second, you can tell this is not your average slasher. There's no masked killer lurking in the shadows, no haunted house with creaky floors and ghostly whispers. No, Final Destination 2 has a much cooler villain. The invisible, relentless, utterly smug concept of death itself. And that, dear friends, is where the genre game changes entirely. Instead of your standard final girl running from a dude with a machete, this movie gives you a group of people desperately trying to dodge the consequences of cheating fate. It's like the horror gods got bored and decided to make mortality into a puzzle with deadly consequences. There are no weapons, no escape routes, and no monster to outsmart. Just death, waiting patiently for the next freak accident to look like a coincidence. And the way the film plays with that idea? It's nothing short of genius chaos. It flips the genre's expectations by turning suspense into a scavenger hunt of doom. This franchise, and particularly this sequel, perfects the art of suspense in broad daylight. That's rare in horror. There are no shadows for monsters to jump from because the terror isn't hiding, it's right in front of you, disguised as everyday life. A spilled bottle of water, a crack in the glass, a loose screw. These tiny details become harbingers of doom, and the audience becomes a detective trying to spot the danger before it strikes. Every scene is like a mini Final Destination escape room with no exit. And when it comes to action, this movie does not hold back. The infamous highway pileup that kicks things off. It's a genre-defining moment. You're not even 10 minutes into the film, and it's already launched you through one of the most chaotic, stomach-clenching sequences ever put to screen. Cars flipping, bodies flying, logs tumbling. It's not just a crash, it's a ballet of mayhem. Action in horror is rarely this creative, and Final Destination 2 uses it not just for thrills, but to set a tone. Buckle up, because this ride is going full throttle into madness. Then there's the humor. Oh yes, the dark, delicious humor. This movie doesn't pretend to be all serious business. It winks at you. It lets you giggle nervously before slapping you with another absurd death sequence. It knows that part of the fun is the absurdity. Where else can you laugh at a character almost slipping on spaghetti only to get flattened by a fire escape? That's horror-comedy fusion done right. Terrifying, but with a twisted sense of playfulness. Even within the horror genre's drama elements, the film throws in a surprising amount of emotional weight. These characters aren't just body count placeholders. They argue, panic, bond, and break down in ways that feel, if not Oscar-worthy, then at least human enough to keep you invested. You want them to survive. You know most won't. But the script plays with that tension by giving them just enough vulnerability to make their fates hit harder. Now, let's talk cliches, because yes, the film has them, but it uses them like a magician uses props. The psychic dreams, the mysterious deaths, the reluctant heroes, it's all familiar territory, but Final Destination 2 spins it into something so bonkers and self-aware that you can't help but cheer it on. It doesn't subvert every horror rule, but it bends them until they squeal. It's not trying to be revolutionary. It's trying to be wildly entertaining, and that's a genre flex in itself. So, in the grand hall of horror movies, Final Destination 2 is that weird, brilliant cousin who brought fireworks to a funeral. It respects the genre just enough to honor it, but breaks enough rules to make it fun again. It turns suspense into a sadistic guessing game, action into a death dance, and cliches into carnival rides. And through it all, it never forgets that horror can be both terrifying and fun as hell. 14. Social and cultural commentary ****. Now this is where things get really interesting because Final Destination 2 doesn't exactly walk into the room wearing a giant, serious commentary badge, but if you peel back the layers, under the highway crashes, spontaneous explosions, and death by plate glass window insanity, you'll find some sneaky little jabs at the real world. This movie is like that friend who's always cracking jokes but occasionally drops a truth bomb so sharp, you just sit there blinking for a second. First off, let's talk about the big, looming elephant in the room, our obsession with control. Final Destination 2 grabs that anxiety and stretches it across every frame. In a world where we try to map out our lives with planners, insurance policies, and GPS routes to the grocery store, this movie comes in and says, guess what? You're never actually in charge. Death in this film isn't just a supernatural force. It's a metaphor for life's total unpredictability. It's the cosmic reminder that no matter how many vitamins you take or seatbelts you buckle, there's always some rogue chain of events waiting to turn your day into a disaster documentary. The film taps into that cultural undercurrent of fear we all feel, but try not to think about too hard. And instead of whispering it, it screams it with a flaming airbag to the face. But the commentary doesn't stop at existential dread. Let's talk consumerism and modern infrastructure. That jaw-dropping opening pileup? That isn't just a set piece. It's a chaotic dance of man-made machines turning against their creators. SUVs, semis, chains, glass, and steel, symbols of modern progress, become harbingers of doom. This movie basically points a finger at all the stuff we rely on and says, "Yup, one small glitch, and it's your funeral." There's something darkly hilarious and painfully true about how Final Destination 2 reflects the fragility of our man-made comforts. It's a world built to be safe, but one twist of fate and the entire illusion shatters. And the movie relishes that moment of collapse. It also has a sneaky way of spotlighting the randomness of injustice. Nobody in this movie deserves what happens to them. There's no moral scoreboard here, just people in the wrong place at the wrong time trying to figure out a pattern that doesn't exist. It's a pretty sharp statement about the real-world truth that bad things don't only happen to bad people. Life is messy. Death is messier. And this film basically dumps that mess in your lap and dares you to find meaning in the chaos. Then there's the way it treats interconnectedness. There's a whole subplot about how the survivors of the original movie are linked to the new characters. It's Death's version of a cosmic spiderweb, and it's got something pretty biting to say about how our lives overlap in unexpected, sometimes destructive ways. In a world that's becoming more globally connected, this idea hits hard. One person's decision, one missed flight, one small change can echo through a chain of strangers' lives. The film exaggerates it for horror, but the idea? Totally real. And while it doesn't go deep into social hierarchies, it's worth noting how it throws together people from different walks of life and forces them into the same no-win scenario. A lottery winner, a stoner, a cop, a mother, a businesswoman, they all end up equalized by the fact that death doesn't check your resume. It's a grim equalizer, yes, but also a cheeky way for the film to say, hey, no matter who you are, the system is still rigged against you when the game is life versus fate. There's even a little poke at how we process trauma. Every time a character tries to explain what's happening, they're met with disbelief or outright ridicule. Sound familiar? In the real world, we often dismiss or downplay people's struggles unless they come with a receipt. The film touches on that, too. How we cope, how we react to survivors, and how systems don't always have room for fear that doesn't follow a formula. So while Final Destination 2 might not be pounding the table about climate change or political corruption, it's definitely whispering, okay, maybe shouting, about how fragile our sense of safety really is. It uses the language of horror and spectacle to sneak in these sharp little truths about how we live, what we depend on, and how easily it can all come undone. It's popcorn philosophy wrapped in blood-soaked metaphors, and it leaves you with more than just the fear of elevators and barbecue grills. It plants that little seed of dread that maybe, just maybe, we're all a little more vulnerable than we want to believe. 15. Audience engagement ***. Let's be honest right from the jump. Final Destination 2 * doesn't just engage the audience. It grabs them by the collar, yells, "Watch this," and then throws them headfirst into a blender of anxiety, morbid curiosity, and wild, delicious panic. If you've seen this movie even once, chances are high you've never looked at a log truck the same way again. That right there is the power of engagement, when a single scene rewires your brain forever. The infamous highway pileup is cinema's ultimate shock therapy. People watch it with their jaws open, their popcorn forgotten midair, their bodies half curled into the fetal position. It's not just a scene, it's a shared trauma that bonds viewers together across decades. But it's not all jump scares and gory payoffs. What makes this film stick to your ribs is its emotional roller coaster. It builds tension not just through suspense, but through dread that you might be next. Every character becomes a mirror. What if that were me? What if I spilled coffee at the wrong time or stood under the wrong ladder? The audience isn't watching from a safe distance, they're constantly calculating their own odds. That's the secret sauce. The movie doesn't just entertain, it activates a deep-rooted part of your brain that keeps whispering, what if? long after the credits roll. The film also sparks something else: laughter. Not the belly laugh, sitcom kind, but the nervous, "oh no, did that just happen" kind. It's the kind of laugh you blurt out when a guy gets flattened by a giant glass pane right after narrowly escaping death in a dentist's office. That blend of shock and absurdity keeps you on your toes. The movie makes you laugh because you're scared. It's the same reaction people have on roller coasters, screaming 1 second, giggling the next. It turns horror into a communal experience, something you talk about, rewatch, and dare your friends to sit through. And don't even get started on how this movie fuels post-watch discussions. Fans become amateur detectives, obsessing over the Rube Goldberg-like setups of each death. People swap theories, timeline breakdowns, and favorite kills like trading cards. You'll find yourself saying things like, "Okay, but the dentist scene, how did they make me fear a fish tank?" It's the kind of movie that begs for repeat viewings, not just to enjoy the chaos again, but to catch the clues you missed. The background details, the symbols, the hidden foreshadowing that turns every light flicker and wind gust into a sinister omen. Emotionally, Final Destination 2 might not be a tearjerker, but it absolutely makes you feel something. It's pure adrenaline and dread, wrapped in dark comedy and sharpened with existential unease. It makes your heart pound. It makes you flinch. It makes you talk to the screen like it can hear you. Don't go in there. No, not the latter. Why would you touch that? That's audience engagement on full blast. You're not just watching. You're reacting, predicting, screaming, laughing, and sweating your way through every second. And even after it's over, the movie lingers like a ghost. It haunts your thoughts. It shows up in your everyday life, in the way you avoid driving behind trucks or side-eye air conditioning units perched above sidewalks. It becomes part of your mental safety manual. That's not just entertainment. That's cinematic influence. Final Destination 2 doesn't ask for your attention. It demands it. And once it has you, good luck shaking it off. Now, when you drop Final Destination 2 into a lineup of horror movies, especially sequels, it doesn't just blend into the crowd. Oh no. This film elbows its way right to the front and says, "Watch me out crazy my own franchise." Compared to the original Final Destination, which was all about slow-building paranoia and that eerie sense of invisible doom, the sequel goes full throttle. It's like the original took a shot of espresso, chased it with pure chaos, and screamed, "Bigger, bloodier, faster." That's the vibe. While the first movie was almost philosophical, musing on fate, chance, and the butterfly effect, Final Destination 2 is here to throw your brain through the windshield and then explain the metaphysics afterward. And somehow that works. In terms of franchise evolution, this sequel is arguably the fan favorite. It's like the Fast and Furious of horror sequels. Yes, it's ridiculous. Yes, it knows exactly what it's doing, and that self-awareness becomes a superpower. Where the first film built the rules, Part 2 starts playing with them. It deepens the mythology, with a concept of death's design being disrupted and reordered, which not only adds stakes but also layers of nerdy excitement for fans who love decoding every move. Plus, the film introduces the clever twist that new lives saved in the past may now hold the key to survival. It's franchise building with a side of philosophical spice. And compared to other early 2000s horror flicks, especially the ones that leaned into slasher territory like Saw, Hostel, or even The Ring, Final Destination 2 feels like the hyperactive cousin who doesn't need a masked killer or a cursed VHS tape. Its villain is pure abstract inevitability. Death isn't a guy with a knife. It's gravity, friction, poor construction, and spilled spaghetti sauce. That concept alone makes it feel like it's playing a different game altogether. There's no monster to defeat, no killer to unmask, just time and physics working against you. In a sea of horror, where most plots hinge on escaping a person, Final Destination 2 has the nerve to pit its characters against the universe itself. It's also worth comparing it to later entries in the Final Destination series. Parts 3, 4, and 5 all have their memorable moments. Yes, we see you. Tanning bed scene and gymnastics mishap, But part 2 manages to strike that sweet spot between clever writing, escalating tension, and death sequences that feel like they came out of a horror version of Mythbusters. Later films sometimes became a little too self-parodying or relied too heavily on 3D gimmicks. Asterisk looking directly at you asterisk, part 4, but this one still keeps one foot grounded in narrative structure while letting the other foot kick through a window and land in a meat grinder. And in terms of horror sequels across the board, Final Destination 2 breaks the curse. You know the one, where sequels just retread old ground or go completely off the rails. Not here. This movie takes the core of the original, then turbocharges it without losing what made it cool in the first place. It doesn't try to reinvent the wheel. It just straps dynamite to it and launches it down the freeway. Even if you hold it up against other films from director David R. Ellis, like Snakes on a Plane or Cellular, this one feels the most iconic. Ellis had a knack for absurd setups played totally straight, and nowhere is that skill more dialed in than here. It's polished chaos. It's popcorn mayhem engineered with laser precision. You walk away feeling like you just survived a cinematic car crash, and you loved every second of it. So, whether you're judging it against its horror peers, the other entries in the series, or the genre's broader canon, Final Destination 2 doesn't just stand tall. It does a full backflip, lands in a perfectly choreographed death trap, and dares you not to be entertained. Let's dive into the sneaky, symbolic side of Final Destination 2, because believe it or not, this film isn't just about people meeting creatively gruesome ends. It's also a twisted little puzzle box of visual clues, hidden meanings, and death-themed metaphors lurking in every frame. The movie practically dares you to watch with eagle eyes, rewarding the observant with tiny hints that something awful is about to happen. It's not just storytelling, it's storytelling dressed like a magician, showing you the card trick while still blowing your mind. First up, there's the big metaphor running through the whole film like an unseen puppet master: fate. In this universe, death isn't just a creepy concept, it's an entity with a to-do list, and anytime someone tries to skip their appointment, fate reroutes. It's a metaphor for inevitability. No matter how much we try to dodge consequences, life and death always circles back. It turns daily life into a battleground of cause and effect, where spilled coffee, faulty microwaves, and loose wires become ticking time bombs. Every detail you'd normally ignore gets imbued with menace, which flips mundane reality into a metaphorical minefield. Then there's the visual symbolism. Mirrors shatter a lot in this film, and that's not just because glass looks cool when it explodes in slow motion. It represents fractured reality, the shattering of perceived safety. Whenever a mirror breaks or a reflective surface distorts an image, it's like the movie is winking at us, saying, nothing is quite what it seems. There are also constant visual nods to cycles, circles, spirals, wheels. It's a reminder that death's design isn't random. It's a loop, a pattern, a cycle that must be completed. Think about the highway scene. It's not just a disaster. It's a chaotic spiral of interlinked events, each one triggering the next. That's not just tension. It's the shape of the story's philosophy. The recurring motif of premonitions also doubles as a metaphor for guilt and intuition. When characters get a bad feeling or a flash of the future, it's not just horror mechanics at work. It represents that instinct we all have, that gnawing voice in the back of our heads when something feels off. It taps into the anxiety of modern life, where every choice might have unseen consequences. It's not just about avoiding death. It's about that existential dread of not knowing which seemingly innocent action could trigger disaster. The metaphor here is that life is a web, and even the smallest vibration can bring down the whole thing. Even death itself is symbolic. It's not a slasher in a mask. It's not a ghost. It's a force of balance. Every person who escaped their fate is an imbalance that must be corrected. It's almost karmic, as if the universe is realigning itself. That's why the deaths are often ironic or tied to personal habits and flaws. The guy obsessed with cleanliness dies by suffocating from his own protective instincts. The woman who's always in control loses it all in an instant. It's poetic justice in the bloodiest sense, each death a metaphor for the character's weakness or vice. And let's not forget the ever-present signs and omens scattered throughout. Newspaper headlines, radio broadcasts, background conversations, all of them whispering death's plan if you're paying attention. These aren't just Easter eggs for fans. They're symbols of how the universe in this film communicates. It's almost mythological, the idea that fate speaks in riddles and warnings, but only those who look closely can decode them. It adds a mystical layer to the carnage, making the audience feel like they're in on a terrible secret. So when you watch Final Destination 2, sure, you can enjoy the roller coaster of elaborate demises and outrageous near misses. But if you squint a little, read between the screams, and pay attention to what the film is whispering in its twisted little riddles, you'll find that it's not just a splatterfest. It's a metaphor-laced thriller that turns death into a character, fate into a philosophy, and every cracked mirror and ominous breeze into a symbol of something bigger. It's not just trying to scare you. It's trying to tell you that life is delicate, unpredictable, and one wrong turn away from a butterfly flapping its wings and triggering the end. In the grand, twisted tapestry of the Final Destination franchise, Final Destination 2 isn't just a sequel. It's the one that kicks the entire mythology into high gear and says, okay, now, let's get really weird with it. Where the first film laid the eerie foundation, a group of teens cheats death, only to find that death doesn't like being stood up. Part 2 builds on that concept like a demented architect with a taste for chaos. It doesn't just replay the first movie's beats. No, it plugs those beats into a car battery, tosses them into a highway pileup, and watches the dominoes fall. As the second chapter in the series, Final Destination 2 expands the universe in ways that make the franchise feel like more than just a horror anthology. It introduces the idea that death's design can be altered, even manipulated, and that people who were supposed to die, but didn't, can have ripple effects across time. Suddenly, this isn't just a slasher story without a killer, it's a kind of supernatural time puzzle. The new life concept, where babies born after the first film can reset the cycle, adds a strange sense of cosmic bookkeeping to the mix. It's like death isn't just taking revenge, it's maintaining a divine ledger. And then there's the return of Clear Rivers, the survivor from the first film who's now locked herself away in a padded room because she knows death doesn't forget. Her appearance links the two movies and acts as a grim narrator of sorts, guiding the new cast through their doomed journey with the haunted wisdom of someone who's seen it all before. Her role is pivotal, not just for plot, but for tone. She brings the weight of the first film's tragedy and passes it like a cursed torch to the new group. Historically, this film also marks a specific shift in horror movies of the early 2000s. The post-**Scream** era was fading, and horror was about to get a lot grittier with the rise of torture porn films like Saw and Hostel. But Final Destination 2 carved out its own unique path. It didn't need a ghost, a killer, or a cabin in the woods. It used the audience's own awareness of movie tropes against them. Every time a character approached a ladder, stepped into an elevator, or stood near a barbecue grill, viewers braced themselves. This film turned the act of watching into a full-body experience: anticipation, anxiety, release. It trained audiences to look at the background like detectives. And in doing so, it made the environment itself a character in the story. It also solidified the franchise's signature style, the Rube Goldberg-style death sequences. These weren't just accidents, they were ballets of destruction, choreographed down to the last spilled cup of water and flickering light bulb. The second film is where this approach really blossoms, becoming a recognizable trait of the series and influencing how future installments would be crafted. From this point on, it wasn't just about who would die, but how, and how soon fans could start dissecting every clue in the background before the blood hit the floor. And let's not forget the cultural context. Released in 2003, this movie landed in a world newly obsessed with disaster preparedness, paranoia, and the illusion of control. It tapped into real fears, accidents, randomness, fate, and added just enough supernatural spice to make it feel mythic. The idea that you can be doing everything right and still die horribly because you weren't meant to survive is both terrifying and weirdly relatable. The film captures that post-9/11 anxiety about safety and control without being overt. It makes the chaos feel personal, grounded in the everyday. So in the broader franchise, Final Destination 2 is like the engine that keeps everything running. It clarifies the rules, raises the stakes, and carves out the identity of the series. It's where the mythology starts to spiral, where the deaths become art forms, and where the audience starts playing the game alongside the characters. If the first film was the origin story, Part 2 is the moment the franchise realized what it could really be, and then gleefully smashed that realization through a windshield at 80 miles per hour. Let's talk numbers, explosions, flying logs, and the financial fate of Final Destination 2. Now, this isn't your mega million Marvel kind of blockbuster, but for a horror sequel in the early 2000s, it was packing a solid punch. The movie was made on a budget of around $26 million. And for that price tag, the filmmakers didn't just bring back Death's design. They brought it back with style, steel, smoke, and some of the most memorable highway carnage ever burned into moviegoers' memories. You could practically smell the burning rubber. Now, what's impressive is just how slick everything looks for that kind of budget. The opening pileup? That's a set piece that feels like it belongs in a big-budget disaster flick. You've got cars flipping, gas tanks bursting, logs flying through windshields like spears of doom, and chaos choreographed so tightly it's like Death himself was directing traffic. The money clearly went into what fans came for: elaborate, domino effect deaths, sharp cinematography, and intense practical meets digital effects that still hold up surprisingly well. And how did that investment pay off?
Pretty handsomely, actually.
Final Destination 2 pulled in just over $90 million at the global box office. That's more than triple its production budget, making it a clear financial win for New Line Cinema. It wasn't just coasting on the first film's reputation either. This sequel found its own voice, its own audience, and even drew in horror fans who maybe skipped the first but heard about that insane highway scene and had to see it on the big screen for themselves. Word of mouth was a powerful marketing tool here, because if there's one thing horror fans love, it's telling each other about the most shocking moments before saying, "You've got to watch it." The marketing leaned hard into the fear factor. Trailers teased disaster without giving away too much. Posters hinted at Death's omnipresence, and the promotional machine promised bigger, bolder, bloodier. It worked. Audiences came in for the spectacle, stayed for the inventive kills, and walked out with the sense that they'd just witnessed a horror movie that didn't just repeat the formula. It played with it like a cat with a mouse. Reception from critics was mixed. Sure, it's a horror sequel, after all, but audiences were way more forgiving. Fans appreciated the creativity, the expanded mythology, and the relentless suspense. This wasn't a movie that tried to hide what it was. It embraced its identity as a dark, funhouse ride through fate and doom, and ticket buyers rewarded that confidence. So, while Final Destination 2 may not have had the budget to rival Hollywood's biggest blockbusters, it stretched every dollar with deadly precision and gave audiences a sequel that didn't just bank on the success of the first. It earned its own place at the box office and in horror history. It proved that with the right amount of creativity, a modest budget, and a deep respect for timing both literal and fatal, you can scare audiences silly and walk away with a financial win. Ready to tempt fate and dive back into the chaos of Final Destination 2? This 2003 sequel doesn't just revisit the eerie dance with death. It amplifies it with more elaborate setups and a deeper dive into the franchise's mythology. Whether you're in Talagang, Punjab, or anywhere else, here's how you can experience every suspenseful moment. Streaming options. For viewers in Pakistan, Final Destination 2 is available in high definition on OSN+. This platform offers an ad-free experience, ensuring uninterrupted thrills as you watch fate unfold. If you're looking for more flexibility, the film is also accessible on several international streaming services. *Max. Formerly HBO Max subscribers can stream the movie as part of their package, enjoying the suspense in crisp quality. *Amazon Prime Video. Available for rent or purchase, allowing you to watch at your convenience. *Apple TV, Microsoft Store, and Fandango at Home. These platforms offer both rental and purchase options, catering to your viewing preferences. Netflix availability. While Final Destination 2 isn't currently on Netflix in Pakistan, It is available in select countries like Canada, the UK, Australia, Germany, and Japan. Availability varies by region due to licensing agreements. Optimal viewing experience. To fully immerse yourself in the film's intricate death sequences and suspenseful moments, watching on a larger screen with quality sound is recommended. Platforms like OSN Plus and Max provide high-definition streaming, enhancing the visual and auditory experience. So, prepare yourself for a roller coaster of suspense and unexpected twists. Whether you're revisiting this horror classic or experiencing it for the first time, Final Destination 2 promises a thrilling ride that will keep you on the edge of your seat.